Now look, I know you're touching the Eiffel Tower. I'm just asking it, don't break it.
I'm touching the Eiffel Tower.
The city of Paris dates back to 256 BC, and it was a Celtic tribe that settled on the banks of the Seine. In 52 BC, the fisherman village was conquered by the Romans, founding a Gallo-Roman town called Lucia. The city changed its name to Paris during the 4th century. During this period, the city was threatened by Attila the Hun and his army. According to legend, the inhabitants of Paris resisted the attacks thanks to a providential intervention from Saint Genevieve. The building we're going by now is the Garnier Opera House, and it is features the largest stage in all of Europe. Matter of fact, you can fit the Arc de Triomphe on the stage. That's how big it is, and we're going to visit that in a little bit. But it is the inspiration for the Phantom of the Opera. Went on a little boat ride down the river La Seine, and from here you can get a good view of Notre Dame. Now, whether people know it or not, Notre Dame caught fire in 2019, and they are still in the middle of rebuilding it. Some of the interesting things about Notre Dame is that 28 of its kings lost their heads in the French Revolution. That was a very bloody time for France, and the statues in Notre Dame were decapitated if they depicted a king of the monarchy. There's a picture of it on fire, and here they're rebuilding it, so Notre Dame's on its way back. Next, let's visit the Arc de Triomphe. It honors those who fought and died in the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, with the names of all the French victories and generals inscribed on its inner and outer surfaces. Under its vaults lies the tomb of the unknown soldier from the First World War. It was inaugurated in 1836, began construction in 1806, and it stands 50 meters high and 45 meters wide and 22 meters deep. It is the largest triumph arch in the world before the construction of the one in the Polygon in 1982. Its design was inspired by the Roman Arch of Titus. Now, from the roof, you get a great view of Paris and the organization of the center of the city, how everything flows to the Arch of the Triomphe. The Eiffel Tower was built in 1889 in celebration of 100 years after the French Revolution. It was built and financed by a guy named Eiffel, and he hired several architects, and there was a big contest, and they won for the exhibition. It was only supposed to have a 20-year life expectancy. The city of Paris had given Eiffel 20 years to recoup his money. He paid for most of it, and he didn't want to see it torn down, so they were experimenting at the time with radio waves and antennas. So once they started learning the value that this tower could have in broadcasting and receiving wireless radio waves, it was decided that they would keep the tower in place. During World War II and the occupation of Nazi Germany, the elevators were sabotaged by the French so that the Fuhrer could not ride the elevators to the top of the Eiffel Tower. So because he could not ride the elevators, he decided not to take the steps and was never able to see Paris from the top of the Eiffel Tower. It's a beautiful view, and we really enjoyed being up here. just looking at Paris from such a magnificent height. Seeing the Eiffel Tower all lit up at night is a real treat, and we enjoyed it, especially from the water. Next, we went to the Louvre. The Louvre is the most visited museum on the planet. It has 15 acres of exhibition and displays. It was first built in 1190, and it was constructed as a fortress by King Philip II of France to protect the city from outsiders. The fortress was completed in 1202, and in the 14th century, King Charles V turned the Louvre into the royal residence. It was amidst the riots and the bloodshed during the French Revolution that the Louvre Museum was born. Once Louis XVI was imprisoned, the royal collection became national property. In 1793, the Louvre opened to the public as the Muséum Central des Arts de la République. Well, the French language is tricky. At the time, the museum collection included 537 paintings and 184 objects of art. In 1803, the Louvre was renamed the Musée Napoléon, and the name remained until 1814. The renaming was inspired by the expansion project undertaken by Napoleon III. With his conquests, the collection at the Louvre increased exponentially, triggering a need to expand the space available to showcase the treasures. In 1815, when Napoleon abdicated, nearly 5,000 works of art were sent back to their country of origin. Some stolen works continue to be housed in the Louvre, one of the most important ones being the Wedding at Cana by Versailles. And finally, under this golden dome is the Chapel of Los Invalides, and it's the final resting place of Napoleon. King Louis of Philippe had the chapel built and had Napoleon's remains sent here. It took 20 years to build the chapel. It was built to bring unification to the French people because so many were unhappy with how Napoleon was treated. Napoleon's chapel was built on the grounds of Los Invalides, and Los Invalides gets its name from the word invalid, where all of the retired and injured military people from the French military would go. So at one time this was a hospital and a hotel and housing for injured war veterans for France. I hope you've enjoyed your little trip here to Paris and got some information about some of the things that we saw and enjoyed while we were there. Of course, there's more to see and do in Paris than you could possibly see and do, but if you ever get a chance to visit this wonderful city, we highly recommend it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on SV Jus Dreaming.
It is sunset officially now.